Alright fellas, ladies, have you ever been squatting only to feel an electric pain shooting throughout your butt cheek, crippling you and making you unable to complete the lift, especially at heavy weights? Well, I got the solution for you. Alright, so as you guys can tell from that intro, I'm here to address pain that happens while you're squatting. For me, it happened in my left butt cheek, and basically what happened is I'd be, down in my squat, and then all the way from when I start to move back up, all the way from the locking out position, and I couldn't lock out, I kind of had to stay with this forward tilt. It would hurt right along this part of my butt cheek. Lightning pain that made it harder for me to fully extend, harder for me to complete more than like 2 to 4 reps in a given set. Once I started to get to the point of exhaustion in any weight, it got even so bad to the point where I could only rep 225 for 3 on squat. This is somebody who's made it up to a 405 squat. And it was so rough that after, a couple exhaustive reps, I couldn't finish the intended sets I came to accomplish on a given workout. And I certainly struggled with heavyweight singles. So I went from being able to squat 405 to my max being 335 in the matter of like a year and a half. 2 years. No, just 1 year. Yeah, in 1 year, I dropped a whole lot off of my max. And the rep of 335 almost killed me. It was more of a good morning where I almost fell forward on my neck and got decapitated. I didn't get decapitated, I'm still here, but I almost did. And that's because, I had to compensate by basically doing a good morning, a 335 pound good morning, because I just couldn't stand that left butt cheek pain that primarily happened to me when I was down in the hatch on the squat. And, I'm making this video because I would have sure freaking loved to have had somebody make this video for me a couple years ago. The incident, and there's no point of injury, no acute incident I can trace this back to and be like, oh yeah, that's what did me in. None of that. It kind of started to build up in summer of 2022. I had, squatted 405 towards the end of 2021, and I'd gotten up to 365 for 4 on squat, 385 for 3, all types of cool stuff like that. But it was just a small pinching pain at the time, and at first I took time off to let it fully recover and did box squats for a while. Went back to normal squatting, and it was much worse, and it made me despise hitting legs all the more. And it just got worse and worse. It got to the point where I started to take ibuprofen right before my workouts, which messes up protein synthesis, does not make your muscular recovery ideal. You don't want to be taking a bunch of pain medications such as ibuprofen if you're trying to make gains. There's some science behind that. I can link that in the description below. YouTube won't let me link external sites because I'm not like a verified channel yet. So hit subscribe to make that happen so you can click on links in my descriptions because YouTube would trust me. But I'll put the link down there anyway. You just have to copy and paste it instead of actually clicking on it. But I was also not getting the pain signal while I was squatting, which is probably making my injury worse. And I think it did. And so as a Midwestern gym bro, I obviously did everything except go to get it checked out. So I went through all the YouTube videos from, we got Athlete X, we got the Squat University dude who is always doing the different tests to see like what's the issue with your left butt cheek. And then you got your small personal trainer businesses that had YouTube channels with like they were either affiliated with a gym, a company, or they were themselves. It was always like a man or a woman, and they had their polyester collar neck company shirts or brand shirts on, and they had like the little exercise bands in the background and rubber floor and like a multi-purpose squat rack and kettlebells sitting in the corner, and they could just talk about anything except what my actual problem was, which was a sacroiliac joint pain Your sacroiliac joint is what connects your sacro and iliac bones together. I do believe you have two iliacs. It's kind of like, think about two round things on the opposite side of like a central thing. And then what connects that is your sacroiliac joints. It was my left one, and for some reason it was inflamed. Maybe a nerve was getting pinched in there. Keep in mind, it took me a really long time to pinpoint what this issue was. Probably 3 years into the issue. As of recording this, it's 2025. I got the injury in 2022. So it was a whole lot of up and down. It took me a while to fully atrophy on the squat and for my legs to shrink. I used to have absolute girth gams on my quads, but it diminished because I couldn't squat as intensely with this anymore, and I was not going to accommodate myself by not squatting. I felt like that was the easy way. I could do quad extensions and leg presses all day long, even punish myself with some lunges, which I did do, and I did get some quad growth back from that. But I was not going to rule squatting out of the option because that's a loser mentality. I'm not going to, back to you. If something makes you afraid, you have to do more of what makes you afraid. So my mentality was I just have to recoach my body to be able to do what was hurting me without actually hurting me. So I kind of went up and down with different training methods. There was a long time where my approach was to do a certain amount of weight that at first was 80% of my 1 rep max. And I would do that as many times as possible. And when I could do that for more than 6 reps, I would move up in weight. I'd add 5 pounds. That was set 1. My second set was just a rep out of 1, a little bit higher than that. So for instance, if 295 was the weight I was repping out for the 80% weight range, I would then for my second set, do like whatever I could only do for 1 rep that day, and I would try to build up that second set to a set of like 2, and then when I could get 2 of it, I'd move up again. And for a long time I made gains by doing that. I was able to work up from I started at 225, I believe, for that first initial weight range, and then eventually ended up at I think 325 it was more like 315. Yeah, 315 for that first set. And then for my second set, it was 245. But I ended up, training right here at my home gym and failed a 245 rep, fell forward onto the safety bars. But imagine like this is where my upper body and my legs meet. I basically folded forward like this, and this is my butt cheek. It got stretched even worse. So it was horrible. It was so bad that I had to take time completely off of squatting for at least a month. And this was right before I did my half marathon. So I got to write it off as an excuse and be like, I have an excuse now. I got the half marathon coming up. I'll just stop squatting. I'm hitting legs by doing the runs and whatever. So, let go of squatting from there. And then after my half marathon, I had to start at a plate. I had to do 4x6 with 1 plate afterwards because my quads were so weak and my left butt cheek hurt so much. And it took me the whole rest of the summer. It was May 2024 when I did the half marathon. And basically from there all the way up until fall, I squatted 3 times a week, but really light loads, and just tried to get the proper form down. And that didn't work either. Eventually I got to 275, and the pain was so bad that I had to start back over. I had to go back and drop down, and my left butt cheek was still lightning, electricity pain just shooting throughout my butt cheek. Disabling me from squatting heavy and pushing myself. I could do slow and controlled reps of a lightweight for a while, but even that would get exhausting. So I was like, I have to find a way to squat heavy again. Squatting light, I'm just gonna be here squatting all day, and even then, once I get to the point where I make gains, it starts to hurt again and stops me. So I had to figure something out. Keep in mind, I had good days and I had bad days. I had a day where I could squat 315 for 6, and that was around the time where on my old channel, I made the leg workout where I only drank alcohol instead of water during the workout. Completely off the subject. But go check that video, or I'll re-upload it one day. You don't have to go check it out on my old channel if you don't want to. I got you. But I had my good days and I had my bad days. I had days where it affected me a lot and days where it didn't. I had days where at high weight I was able to squat relatively pain-free, and I had days where I had really low weight and I could do as awful. And it was really debilitating. So, you've listened to my story long enough. This is around the part where I'm going to start showing you what I did. I finally locked in fall of 2024. So while this injury was a thorn literally in my side for 3 years, all the progress I made, all of it happened in the course of like 9 months or so. Basically from fall of 2024 up till when I had my powerlifting meet a couple weeks ago in August of 2025. And the pain went away somewhere in between there, and I started making gains pretty recently on legs. So, what did I do? So to start off, I did this is towards the very beginning. I thought that my glutes weren't strong enough, so I strengthened both parts. I strengthened the inner and the outer thigh with the leg spreading and leg closing workouts. Everybody's got different names for those exercises. I call them leg spreads and leg closing. We like to keep it a relative amount of family friendliness on this channel. So I did that, and for a while I saw immediate results with that. And my squat went up right away, but once I got to a certain point, there was that pinching electric pain again. Couldn't do it, it wasn't sustainable, but having a balanced hip abductor and adductor muscles is huge. That's why I included that. Even though it didn't do a lot for me, at least not initially, having equal balance between the spreading and closing of your legs is huge for maintaining postural control throughout the whole range of motion up and down in the squat. You don't want your legs to be uncontrolled. You want a relatively straight movement pattern up and down, and to do that you have to have relatively strong but a healthy balance in relationship between your hip adductor and abductor. Abductor is what spreads your leg, adductor brings it to you. Think about adding, adducting, bringing towards, and abducting. I don't really need to explain that one. Your leg's getting abducted. So I did that. I did some band work, basically doing the same thing at home but with a band around my legs, right at the ankle. And additionally, I would squat with a band around my legs then, because the band would bring my legs kind of in together and kind of naturally force my hip abductors to kind of activate in the squatting motion up and down. So that was thing number one. The use of strengthening your adductors and abductors, especially while squatting, by using a band around your ankles to signal to your abductors to get active. That was method number one. That's the first thing I employed. And the second thing I employed was a huge laundry list of stretches. Now, I will also link the exact routine down below that I was supposed to use. I deviated from it a lot, and because what I had to do to fit my schedule was do a little bit of these stretches every day instead of doing 2 long stretching sessions twice a week. I split it up, made it so that I only had to do each of these sets once a day. And these stretches were triangle pose, the kind of toe or floor touch where you're bent all the way over, stretching out your hamstrings, the bird dogs, the kind of glute squeeze or like a ball crush with your thighs, All of this I will have demonstrations of, so you know what I'm talking about. And glute bridges. These 5 exercises I did a little bit of every single day, and I will kind of show you exactly how I did it right here. So triangle pose, I have my feet kind of lined up, but one foot is pointing out and they're about 3 feet apart in distance, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. And I just stretch to one side, make that stretch kind of to discomfort, and then just kind of hold it right there. Switch to the other side. I can kind of judge just based on experience when I've gotten a good stretch from this one. And I do that once a day. The website called for a little more, but like I said, I customized this routine to kind of fit my schedule a lot more. So instead of doing sets twice a week, I did 1 set every single day. Then I would do these toe touches, but since I have longer arms and longer spine than I have legs, I do floor touches, palms flat on the ground. Kind of sus, I know, but we're stretching out the hamstrings right here, making sure that they're nice and loose. Here we have the bird dogs. I could probably move my arms a little more up so that my back is flatter here. It is a little bit more of at a angle that I'm supposed to be, just because I have the longer arms than my legs. As you can kind of see, there's a little bit of a upward position there. Here I have the bridges. I also do one long bridge, and I do 1 long session each side for the bird dogs. Right here I do the ball squeezes. This one actually calls for 10 sets of 5-second holds, so I do 3 sets of 5-second holds every single day to fit this into my routine and my schedule. Last thing I want to say is just remember that your hips and body are square and lined up on the triangle pose. One little tidbit of information that might be helpful for you all to remember is that in your posterior chain, when a body part is hurting of yours, it usually means a muscle above or below, or just a part of your body above or below the hurting point is underperforming or overcompensating. So what I mean by this is a lot of butt cheek pain can be caused by a weak lower back or weak hamstrings, or an upper back that's doing too much, or hamstrings that are doing too much. So I also made it my effort to strengthen hamstrings through not so many good mornings. I did some good mornings here and there when I couldn't do single leg RDLs and hamstring curls. And you can almost always do those. When I was at home, did the single leg RDLs. That really taught me a lot of balance, which really helped out in squatting a lot. Mind-muscle connection, training off imbalances from right to left, not just from hamstring to lower back. And I would do some hamstring curls, 5 sets, kind of building up to heavier sets, failing around the 5th rep. Not like failing, not like bodybuilding failing, but I'm like, I probably couldn't do a 6th without letting form go. That was what the 5th rep wanted to look like. So relative failure around the 5th rep in bodybuilding terms. Then I strengthened my lower back by doing those back extension things. There's always those benches that are kind of at an angle. I just got on those things, did 4x5, and that was the one that instantly my pain started to go away. Like, the next week I was squatting more just from that 1 week of exercising. 4 sets of 5. I started with body weight. Then I started to hold a kettlebell going down and up on that thing. And now I kind of do a plate because that lets me get more range of motion than a kettlebell. Sometimes I hold a dumbbell in one arm and do the extensions, and then the next set is the other arm. So kind of like different sides of my lower back. I'm training, I'm making sure I don't get any imbalance and making sure I have like that unilateral or whatever, kind of strength. And so those two, strengthening my hamstrings and strengthening my lower back, relieved a lot of pain from my squat. And then what I did for actual squat reps and schemes for the longest time was so initially I wanted to do 5x5. And that became too much. It worked at first, And I think if I would have been a little smarter about my progression, it might have worked long term. But I ended up going on this method. So I took 5x5 and then said, what is the heaviest weight I could do a pain-free rep of just one time squatting? And at the time it was 295. So I would do at a plate. So I do 135 for 5. My next set was 185 for 5. Then I would do 225 for 5. And those were stimulating. At the time I had atrophied quite a bit where plate was a warm-up, but 185, I was definitely getting some work out of that. If I would have done 185 like for 6 sets of 5 or something, that would have been a workout for me because I was feeling something from it. And same with 225. 275, the wrist wraps were going on and I was putting on the belt and I was really locking in. It was that set of 275 that was like really the working set where I was like the 5th rep is close to failure. It's near failure. I could not have done a 6 rep. Absolutely could not have done a 6 rep. And I was moving heaven and earth just to make sure my form was still good on that 5th rep. Then I would do 295 just once and I'd try to perform it pain-free. And sometimes it wasn't pain-free, but I would just do that 1 rep. And if I could perform it pain-free, I would drop down to, at first it was 245 and I worked my way up to 265 for this drop set. And I would just do that for 5 again. So I have 3 really working sets where it's like, that is where the workout, the really hard part comes in. And I was getting the squat motion, the mind muscle connection, the neural activation in the first 3 as well. The 135, the 185, and the 225. They just weren't as muscle building as the last 3 sets are. And then I would do a little bit of single leg focus, like unilateral type of exercises, like pistol squats, lunges, or quad extensions. I'd do 1 to 3 sets of that. And like I said, the back extensions. I would do hamstrings on a completely separate day. But back extensions, I would implement them on my leg day all the time, which looked silly in the gym, but they were helping me overcome this problem. I was strengthening above and below the problem point. So not only was I strengthening my glutes through the squatting, but I was strengthening the other muscles in the squat function so that they could not so much overcompensate, but take a little bit of load off my glutes while both my SI joint and my glutes healed. That was the method. And I made progress. I didn't see progress pretty much until like spring of 2025. Like I could tell, oh my gosh, the pain is starting to go away on my squat. And so yes, it took 3 years. It took a lot of figuring out what my body really was going through and what would actually fix my body. It took me a lot of patience. It took me a lot of trial and error to get to the bottom of it. And there were no videos. I'll cite you the one article that did help me a little bit, but a lot of it was trial and error, and that's what a lot of things are. I just hope that this video right here helps somebody out there who went through what I was, because it felt like such a rare issue. Like a lot of people, their issues were with hip abductor and adductor, or having a limb that was longer than the other. And I don't have an imbalance in my limb length, but one of my feet have an arch and one of them doesn't, which takes one off a little bit. So I would also curl my toes a little bit sometimes on the lighter squats. That also helped just a little bit. I only did that towards the beginning too, keep in mind. And I only trained with a band around my legs for a couple months. Then I let go and continued on. I did the stretches all throughout this training, started my day with them. And then after my squat workouts, this is important. Any exercise where I use my legs, I would do a glute stretch, hamstring stretch, quad stretch. I'd do the, not crisscross applesauce, but basically when you go like this, I would do that. And calf stretches after every single exercise where I use my legs in. And this is a little bit extracurricular, but I also took some CBD, tart cherry, and did Epsom salt baths to lower inflammation and soreness on days where it was especially tough. You can spam those as long as, you know, your liver or kidney allows the CBD in tart cherry. They're anti-inflammatory supplements. They'll also relinquish some pain, and Epsom salts also help with pain. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that like heat exposure does help with healing and lowering inflammation, but Epsom salts, maybe it's placebo. I just felt like I was, you know, in a little recovery chamber, like I was in the little diaper tank from Star Wars 5 on Hoth after Luke, you know, gets inside of that one ice dwelling animal. Some days I would supplement a squat with a hex bar deadlift because, like I put in the captions earlier, squat is the only thing that would ever activate this intense pain. Deadlifting wouldn't, hack squatting wouldn't, leg pressing wouldn't, and hex bar deadlifting wouldn't. And hex bar is a similar type of movement than squat, I feel like. You're in a similar position and you're activating a similar chain of muscles. So some days I would do that, and eventually I just built my point. Recently I built up to the point where I could squat 315 for that top set of 5. So 315 became the weight that I could do for 1 rep pain-free at the end of the 5x5 kind of build up, and then I could do 315 for 5, so I went up to 325 and then 335. And that's basically how I started to make gains. And it's still an ongoing progress. I still have to work around it a little bit. I actually just had legs today, and it was pretty pain-free. It's awesome. And it's something that I never thought I'd be able to do. So many times I thought that I would have to give up squatting, and that would screw my chances of powerlifting too. I'd always wanted to try out powerlifting, but you can't powerlift if you can't squat at all. Well, you can go in as a specialist, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to just bench or squat. I want to do all 3, baby. So now we're kind of Gucci, and that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this helps you guys out, because I sure would have wanted something like this to help me out when I first started. This might not be as entertaining for all of you. It might not touch base for everybody, but for those it does, I need to make this video for, because I didn't have that and I needed it. I learned this through trial and error. So I love you guys. God bless you. Peace out. And I will see y'all next time.